Welcome everyone to SLU's orientation. My name is Dr. Michael Passage, and I am the assistant clinical professor in the ABA program, as well as the program director. Um, Professor Lewis, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Professor Heather Lewis. I'm an associate professor here. I've been at SLU in some capacity or another since about 2012, and I teach classes in the social work and ABA programs. I serve as a liaison for both MSW and MSABA students and help kind of develop and oversee the practicum. So we'll spend a lot of time hanging out in discussion around practicum, but I might also be your advisor or teach a few classes with you.
Yeah, wonderful. So, unlike Professor Lewis, who has spent a bit of time here at SLU, I think I had mentioned in my initial uh, greeting was that this is my first year here in St. Louis at SLU University. I'm loving it, and I think you're gonna all love it here too. Um, so, uh, what we're gonna be doing during this breakout session is we're gonna take a moment to introduce ourselves. We'd love to get to know all of you, a little bit better, and then we'll talk about the course descriptions and outlines of that. Do a review of some of the materials that we use here in the program, as well as some helpful hints. So why don't we take a moment? I'm going to actually I'll take the screen away so that we can all be able to see each other. But if you can introduce yourself, provide your name, what are your plans to use ABA after graduation, and are you an early bird or a night owl? I will throw it to Mia first, and then you can popcorn it over to someone else.
Sounds good. My name is Mia. I hope to work with special needs children and maybe an elementary setting. And I would say I'm a night owl. And then I will popcorn it over to Ellis.
Hi, my name is Shamika Ellis. Um, where do I plan to use my ABA? Anywhere in the field of people who dealt with trauma. Um, and what was the next question?
Are you a night? Are you
Oh,
morning or a night bird?
uh, morning. I will pop it over to Octavia.
My name is Otavia. I plan on using this degree to get to be uh, a behavioral analyst. I'm an RBT, approaching my 5 years as we speak.
Woo!
Worked in home, school settings, all various of them. I'm actually an RBT right now, working in an ASD classroom. So I've done my undergrad. We had one class, so I took one ABA class there, and then my background is in psychology. So I'm a little bit familiar of the ABA world and everything. And I am a morning person.
Fantastic. So nice to meet everyone.
Absolutely. Um, so next we want to kind of walk you through how the ABA specific course outline, how it flows. And so first, your first two courses that you'll take, typically in the program will be principles and concepts, and measurement and experimental design. Those are really very much we consider like our intro courses because the principles and concepts that really delves deep into, all of the concepts and principles, the terminology that you're going to be covering throughout all of your other courses. And then also because behavior analysis is a very data-driven career, understanding the measurement and experimental design early on is critical so that you can be able to evaluate articles that we read, as well as be able to design your own graphs for the interventions and practices you're doing in your career. Um, the following semester, that's when we begin to delve more into applied work with behavior change and behavior assessment. Um, your first summer, we cover basic behavior analysis, which is an optional class, as well as as well as ethics and behavior analysis. Finally in the fall, you'll take the philosophy and behavior science, and you'll learn about the theory and philosophy that serves as like the pillars and foundations for this field. And then finally in the spring, you'll take a supervision organizational behavior management class. So those are the courses that are very, follow a very specific order. And then you'll also be taking practicum, which Professor Lewis will talk to you in a bit more detail in the next slide, as well as seminar. And for MSABA students, they complete a thesis, and all other ABA students who are in the concentration, like you folks, you would be doing a capstone that would occur at the end of the program. Professor Lewis, do you have anything to add to this before we move on to the practicum?
The only quick thing to note is that the only place where this comes up at all in terms of planning and preparation is that you'll have advising meetings once in the fall, once in the spring. And as we map these courses out, on occasion, a student might need to take fewer hours or move things around a little bit. And so the only thing to note is that a lot of our core courses are taught in a very specific semester. So we absolutely can move with you around like modifications and everything. But know that like they're only offered this one semester, and so we would just plan accordingly. Whereas the other ones have a lot more flexibility. They can occur in a variety of different semesters.
All right, I'll give it to you now.
Yay. Okay. So, practicum is something that we spend an enormous amount of your degree journey engaged in. And so, basically, this moment is just to briefly acknowledge that, and also acknowledge that there will be lots of points of contact as we discuss, your plans and what will work best for you. When you are in practicum as MSW students, you will have some experiences that are social work only, some are ABA only, and some that will be combined experiences. Traditionally, our students do find themselves at two different sites, and that's going to be an important component and conversation for us to have. Many of you, as I heard there, folks are already working and established at a place of employment. We absolutely can integrate your practicum into that space. The only thing to acknowledge is that one of the semesters that the social work semester only might need to be kind of somewhere else. So we can just spend some time brainstorming through some of those things. So traditionally, students will want to begin planning with me. With fairly early on prior to the semester you plan on starting. So if many of you have kind of looked at the map and you think you might be starting practicum in the summer, we'll want to start talking in February to kind of get the ball rolling and get a plan together for what will work best for you and help you maximize your learning. If you are curious about that, you should all have been tied to the Canvas field page. That does give you a lot of due dates, deadlines. There are sample videos around Experiential Learning Cloud, which is our learning platform where you'll interact a lot with in terms of planning your practicum, and engaging in your hours log and so on and so forth. So that would be a great way to kind of start familiarizing yourself with some of the information. Additionally, many, if not all of you, are enrolled in 5750. Does that sound like a familiar course number? I can't remember the specific title off the top of my head. Are you guys in that this summer? This fall or spring? Yikes. If you are, you will receive a lot of information in that class. There'll be somewhere a couple weeks in, you will actually just spend a lot of time talking about practicum and getting that conversation started about requesting a liaison. And just know that you will, in fact, be tied to me as students who are in that ABA concentration. But definitely don't delay. You want to connect with me and we'll want to get started on that conversation. And then the other piece is to know that it is a lot of information. There'll be a lot of information that I throw at you around practicum. It will feel like the orientation I'm sure you're experiencing today, where it's all very helpful, but it also feels like you're drinking from a fire hose. So, but it all is meant to tell you everything you need to know and where to find it, because we will have many points of contact around practicum, and there will be lots of opportunities to ask questions, and for sure know that there will be places and spaces that we house information so that you know kind of where to go when you can't quite remember which one of those 100 things we talked about. So it's all helpful information, and know that it's not a single point of contact. We're going to have lots of opportunities to discuss and plan. Any questions? Awesome. All right.
All right. Now, this is we want to highlight one particular textbook because while you may be assigned a variety of text and readings throughout the course, throughout the program, there is one textbook that we will be relying on most heavily across many of your courses. And that is the Applied Behavior Analysis textbook by Cooper, Heron, and Heward. It is critical that when you do get this book, make sure you always get the most up-to-date copy because there are significant changes from one edition to the next. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that, Professor Lewis?
No, just that sometimes students plan on renting books, but this we would suggest purchasing.
100%, because this is a book that you're going to rely on well after this program as you're preparing for the exam. But not just that, you're going to rely on this book throughout to do your job. There'll be other resources that you'll learn about as well, but this is, you know, considered, the gold standard in the field.
Mhm.
All right. Next, we have the BDS modules. Um, and so this is a program-wide assessment that we administer throughout many of our courses. It's not in all of them, like theory and philosophy doesn't have this currently, but in our concept and principles, you'll be completing BDS modules as well as in the research methods course in that first fall semester. And um, these modules are designed to build fluency. So for each module, there is an accuracy opportunity as well as a fluency opportunity, and best practices to get 100% on accuracy before moving on to fluency. And the BDS modules have been shown to be an incredibly effective tool in preparing students for the BACB exam. Anything that you would add?
Uh, there was one small thing and it's not coming to mind. Oh, I think the only thing about it that you'll want to have a heads up about is that uh, we can't currently plug this in as a textbook order. And so sometimes if students are using certain financial aid pathways for kind of covering books and so forth. It's not something that is physically offered through our bookstore. And it's not something that you will want to purchase just yet. So the first time you'll want to purchase this, because it is a subscription, you will start receiving an email probably in August that will either be from myself, Dr. Passage, or a representative from the company, where your SLU email address will be attached to the course, to the different professors that require it. So it is kind of an external system that we're working with, but we want to give you guys the heads up because there is a subscription fee. So don't do it yet. We just want to let you know it's coming because it's not going to be housed in the typical space around the textbook. The other thing is that we do offer some compensation for the subscription because it is a requirement for all students. And Jess Kilmade, if she hasn't already, may give you additional information. So you will either want to look in the PowerPoints that she shares, or you will want to look for communication because I believe what we are able to do, I don't know if it's delivered as a stipend or as a certain type of scholarship dollar. But the idea is that it is intended to reimburse you for some of the cost of this particular subscription. And but what we want, I think it's delivered after a successful completion of the first semester. So it doesn't come preemptively, it comes following the completion of your first semester. So Jess Kilmade is your point of contact for the cost, but please don't make any purchases or subscriptions until August when you'll need it.
All right. And so next I just want to cover some things to remember. One is that your instructors here at SLU, we care. And I would go as far as saying that we care more than most. We care about learning. Behavior analysis is what we're really interested in learning how behavior changes, or in other words, how we learn. So this is very much built into the ethos of this practice, as well as social work as well. Um, we're teaching I want to talk about teaching a science versus teaching to a specific niche. We want to make it relevant to you, and where you're at. And so one of the places where that gets to happen is in practicum, where practicum is where we will get to focus on your specific area the most. So when you're taking the principles and concepts course, um, I'm going to, and that's a course that I just taught this fall. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to focus on teaching the processes that are involved, as well as showing how it relates to the natural environment, your everyday life. I'll talk about clinical and I'll talk about educational, and I'll try to make sure I'm covering the different, areas that are of interest to all of my students in the classroom. But it's really hard to really individualize that to the level that you as a student want within that classroom, and that's where the practicum comes in, and that's where, and as well as the capstone. So those are two areas where you get to do get much more of an individual focus that allows you to pursue your passions. Um, and this approach does enhance practice because within the classroom it provides you with a diverse understanding of behavior analysis. You learn through your peers who have very diverse interests as well, and then you get that more individualized instruction. The coursework is also designed to help you become efficient at reading. We try to help de-stress quizzes. One of the ways that we try to do that is by making sure that you are well prepared through study guides and activities leading up to exams and tests. Something I typically do is I provide frequent quizzes, weekly
Mhm.
quizzes. Instead of it being, two or three big exams that are going to be make or break for your grade. Instead, it's weekly assessments so that you can be able to identify what areas within that particular module you may still be struggling with and need to do a deeper dive into, because typically these topics build on each other. So you want to develop that mastery so that you can continue to be successful in future modules or courses. We try to help you develop writing skills that you'll need to practice. One of the things about behavior analysis and social work is that writing is a critical component to this profession. We need to learn how to be, we need to learn how to be able to communicate effectively with not just the clients that we're working with or the parents of those clients. But we also need to be able to figure out, change that way we speak when we're talking to colleagues, and that we have a certain more scientific, professional language that when we talk to those folks versus when we're talking to others. So Learning how to write and communicate are critical skills to being a successful behavior analyst. And also, these coursework is designed to accomplish your goals through many small stakes opportunities versus one giant one. Even in the case of the capstone, which is a giant major project, you have done many small stakes tasks leading up to that big project. And then within that big project, you'll probably have me as your capstone instructor. What I do is I break up that massive project into a bunch of small little mini projects that build onto each other over time. Um, and then, before I continue, Professor Lewis, do you have anything to add to that?
No, no, those are the exact thoughts I have as well.
Okay. Um, so semester one of the concentration is I would recommend connecting with your peers. It is, one of the things that is the science shows us is that you learn most effectively from your peers than you will from the expert like myself or Professor Lewis. Engaging with your peers, getting together and reviewing material before quizzes or sharing if you're working on an assignment, to have someone review it to give you feedback. These are all really great opportunities to build these peer relationships. And what you'll also find is these peer relationships there's a good chance that they're going to benefit you not just within a graduate program, but throughout your professional career as well. I still keep in contact with many of my peers from when I was in the master's program. My wife is also a BCBA, and she is, whenever she has, runs into difficulties herself in the profession, she leans on her peers, many of them from grad school, to help her navigate difficult situations. Don't overthink things. Um, Believe in yourself. A lot of when it comes to graduate school is really just putting the work into it. So when you're at the beginning of the ABA program and those first few weeks, a lot of these terms are gonna you're gonna be thrown. A lot of new terms that you've never heard before are going to be thrown at you. A way of speaking that the way we form our sentences can sometimes be a little weird. Um, and so when you're having all that thrown at you, it's good. You may have asked yourself, is this the right fit for me? But what oftentimes happens is, like, you put in the work, you put in the 8-10 hours of 8+ hours of graduate work per course. And if you put that time and you put that effort, you'll more than likely accomplish all the goals that you set out for yourself as you're entering this graduate program. Um, so the material is going to feel very new, but it repeats itself throughout the coursework. What I cover in the Principles and Concepts course, I cover many of those same topics again in the Behavior Change course, where we're talking about treatments the following semester. The main difference is where one is more conceptual and talking about the processes involved in human behavior. The application is more focused on the interventions that we use in applied settings to produce behavior change. Any any questions? All right.
I have one more to add.
Go ahead.
Have fun. Enjoy yourself, I I did grad school a couple times, and I think the second time around I had more fun with it. I think the first time when I was earning my MSW, I was so stressed. Every class was so stressful, and I would love the material, I would love the content. But I definitely, give yourself permission to just enjoy it too, and not worry so much about the grade and the, getting all the work done. I mean, of course, that I'm sure those emotions will come up for you, but but make sure you have fun too.
Yeah, never worry about like kind of having fun. There will be times where you will encounter content that you think is really neat and cool, and you're like, "Oh, but I've got so much work. I can't go down the rabbit hole. Just go down the rabbit hole, and you'll benefit in the long run."
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, if something is piquing your interest and you want to know more about it, reach out to one of us. We'll be able to kind of help, show you the path to kind of, um, to, to identify those, areas that you're passionate about and that's only going to help your growth.
Yeah, agreed.
I've generally found that one of the things that has been a critical to, my success in this profession is that I've always, found the areas that I really love. And I make sure to I've always set aside time, whether on purpose or just because I just found myself in a rabbit hole but I made sure to do those deep dives into those other topics that go above and beyond what you're talking about in class.
Yeah.
Do you have a question? I have a question about kind of like practicum and gaining hours since I've been in the field for quite some time.
Yeah.
I heard that as soon as we start our coursework, we're able to start our hours. Because so I have a few of mentorees slash supervisors that are certified to get me supervising hours.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I'm just trying to getting those hours take quite some time. So I'm just trying to get the
Yeah.
ball rolling on that.
Otavia, I'm glad you're asking. Are you there's so many different pathways students come in on. So my understanding is your MSW with an ABA concentration, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then are you advanced standing or accelerated, or are you starting with kind of the full gamut of MSW classes, like the
My
foundational?
foundation year. Yeah, the
Wonderful.
general.
Okay. So what that means for you is that you are likely this semester going to enroll in a course that is the prerequisite course for any practicum. So the first you would actually start practicum would be summer.
Okay.
And that particular course will be MSW only. And then from there, the remaining experiences will be either a combination of social work and ABA combined or ABA only. And so what we'll want to do, and if you want to, I'm going to guess that where you are right now would make the most sense for that to be the practicum experience you have for 4 consecutive semesters when you're doing ABA stuff. Um, why don't you reach out and schedule time to connect with me like the second week of February so that we
Okay.
can start planning because we'll ultimately want to plan 2 different experiences. One that's your social work only, and then your one that's your concentration, which would include your combination of social work and ABA, and then of course it wraps up with just ABA only.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Me too. Thanks. And I also have another question, because I asked another professor, he hasn't gotten back to me, but it's in like the major social work. I love research, and I
Nice.
love data, hence why I'm doing this still at
I
RBT
love
for quite
this.
some time. I've done already, when I was an undergraduate, a few research projects. I haven't done research in regards to ABA, to a certain extent, obviously, because we do graph data and all that type of stuff, and I do geek out with my supervisors. But I was wondering if there's any way to gain experience in terms of that.
Ooh, that's a
That's a,
Dr. Passage.
yeah, that's a wonderful question. So I do run a research lab. Um, we meet on Wednesdays. Still working out the final schedule, trying to Professor Lewis has her practicum meetings on Wednesdays too, and trying to make sure that we're holding those meetings at different times than the practicum so that all students can be able to attend. So we meet on most, we'll be meeting on most Wednesdays in the spring semester. We meet on campus, but we also invite the online students as well to be able to join. So it's bring the online and the on campus all together. And We have a variety of projects that we're running. We have the thesis students. They are they're in this spring semester, they're going to be starting uh, data collection on for their thesis. And one of the ways that I always recommend students, especially those who are in their first year, who want to be involved, is oftentimes those thesis students need help with data collection, especially in collecting what IOA data or secondary data, um, to confirm the reliability and the reliability of the data. Um, and so that's always a really great, an easy opportunity to kind of get your feet wet with behavior analytic research. In addition, I also have my own research projects that I'm working to get off the ground. I am in my first year, so it's taking my projects are taking a little bit back seat at the moment, but I'm trying to get trying to get at least one of those research projects, up and running within this year. So, and then, we also, as a lab, we might, do like maybe like a lab project, like a quantitative literature review, on an area that, might be related to a topic that's related to my research interests. Just so you know, like my research interests are in choice making, as well as cooperation, and uh, it seems that my students tend to end up doing research on what we call tacting, or in common language, labeling private sensations. So I've had a couple of students who, in the past, who have done research in that area, and it's an area that a lot of students tend to get excited about. So I would probably expect more of that research in the future as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and I also welcome students if you have like a really neat research idea, um, that you always like. Let's say you have your capstone or your thesis, but let's say you have like another like research idea that you want to that may be a little bit bigger or a little bit more complicated, not something that you would feel comfortable doing as a thesis project, but something that you would love to see come to fruition. I always welcome students like, you have a research idea, schedule a meeting with me and we can kind of hash it out and see what the possibilities are. Um, and so there's always a possibility that you could you could be part of, lead another research project beyond your own capstone or thesis project as well. So there are plenty of opportunities, and just when you start up the semester, just schedule a time to meet with me, and we can talk about those in more detail, as well as attending the lab meeting when I'll send out an invite to all students who might be interested.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, because I'm trying to keep myself, even though I went the master's route, just because I love numbers and everything, I still want to keep my mind open for a PhD program. So I want to keep my CV pretty long as much as possible.
Wonderful. So if you do have that aspirations, I would strongly recommend getting yourself involved on a research project, um, and have like two or three of those, find two or three opportunities where or maybe more, over your time, and that will reflect well. And we can continue to talk about this on a more individualized basis, and I can give you far more specific guidance on steps that you would want to take in order to give yourself the best opportunity for a PhD program if that's something you want.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right. Professor Lewis, is there anything else? Do they go anywhere else, or is this
No, I think they're released for the day.
all right? Well, it has been a pleasure getting to know all of you. I'm very excited to get to know all of you even better as we move forward into the beginning of your program here in SLU. Uh,
Yeah.
It's very exciting. I'm very excited for you.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks.
Thank
So
you
nice to meet
guys.
you.
Bye.